Hi, this is Mr. Heineman from Evergreen High School, and this is for my Microsoft Imagine Academy classes. This is Excel 2013 Core, Lesson 2. So in Lesson 2 here, we're learning how to select things, make changes to a worksheet. We'll also learn the difference between workbooks and worksheets and how we can change the structure of the worksheet, how to add new worksheets, remove worksheets we no longer need, um, and then we'll get to practice those in these exercises. So in this first exercise, we're going to open up the tour prices by year from the microsite student files. It's all the way down here at the bottom. Click open and move this to the right, and immediately I'm going to go ahead and save as and save it in my Excel folder as tour prices by year student. Now I can go ahead and start following the directions. I'm going to copy these values and paste them into column C. So I can use the copy button here, or I can hit Control C to copy, and you notice when I do that, a moving dotted line shows up around my selection. And if I go over here, I don't have to select all the cells I want to paste in. I just have to select the first one I want to paste into. And if I hit Control V, it will paste them all. And you'll notice that that leaves the selection going, as it were, that I copied earlier. And that's so I could copy it and paste it several other times if I wanted to. If I'm only pasting once, what I could do is simply hit enter, and that'll stop and kind of take it off the clipboard and just paste it once. So if I'm only pasting once, I can use enter. If I'm pasting multiple times, I can use the copy and then paste, Control V. So now I'm going to fill in column D with 110%, and then I'm going to click and drag the autofill handle down so that I can fill in all of these. Remember, the autofill handle you can use to, if you have the same values that are being copied to multiple cells. If I copy it in the first, type it in the first cell, use the autofill handle and drag it wherever I want to take it. So that way it clicks in, and I just drag it down. I got 110% in all these. Because now what I'm going to do is copy these values, and I'm going to paste them into these cells. However, I'm going to do a special paste called a multiply option. So I'm going to click the paste drop down, click paste special dialog pops up. I'm pasting all the values, and I'm using multiply as the operation because I want to multiply the cells, or the copied cells, by the cells I'm copying into, and then they'll put the value into that cell. So when I click OK, you'll notice these values are 110% times these values. And I'm going to go ahead and hit ESC to deselect that selection from copying. And so all of these values are 110% of these values. I'm now done with this, and click Save and move on to my next exercise. So in this next exercise, we're going to show you how to use AutoFill a bit more. So I'm going to start by opening up a new file from the microsite student files called Staffing Schedule. And we'll scroll down and find Staffing Schedule. There it is. We'll open it up. Move it to the right. Of course, as always, do a save as first. Save it in the Excel folder as Staffing Schedule Student. Okay. And so what we can do is you can actually autofill using multiple cells. So I'm going to click both A5 and B5, and then I'm going to drag the autofill handle. Remember, it's going to fill all the way down here to 26. Now that's going to change both the dates in column B and the days of the week in column A. And you'll notice what happens when I do that. I go all the way down to 26. Okay. And you'll notice there's this little icon here. These are the autofill options. So if I click it, I can change how I want autofill to work. So right now it's just filling it up based on the series. So it starts with the Monday, December 2nd of 2013, and then it just continues, including every single day between now and the last day on the list. what we're actually going to do is we're going to select fill weekdays because it recognizes that we're using days of the week. So we're just going to fill in the weekdays for that. And if I widen this a little bit, we'll be able to see the dates. So it's only the weekdays from December 2nd all the way through December 31st, which is all the weekdays in December. That's pretty good. So now I'm going to select these 5 cells, and we're going to drag these all the way down and autofill these all the way down as well. And those will just straight up autofill. But when it comes to December 25th, of course, we don't want to have anybody working in Cape Town on December 25th. So we're going to change that one to 0, and then we'll use the autofill to fill it all the way over to Toronto. That way nobody works on December 25th. So we're all done. Save the file, and we can move on to the next exercise. So in this next exercise here, we're going to get a chance to play around with columns and manipulate them. So I'm going to go ahead and open up this file. It's the phone book from Microsite Student Files. And then, of course, move it to the right. And then we're going to go ahead and save as in Excel, save it as the student version. So now we're going to adjust the columns to best suit the data. So there's several ways where you can do this. The easiest way is to simply click and drag. Okay, which is fine, but you can also, if you want to just use whatever size that works, you can double click on the right hand side of the column and it'll do what's called an auto size. So you can auto size each one of these real quick just by double clicking, and that goes for both widening and narrowing. Okay, so we can resize several different ways. There's also, if you right click, you can also specify a column width, and these are kind of special units that Word uses, or I'm sorry, Excel uses. So if you know what column width you're supposed to use, great. Otherwise, you can just click and drag or double click to do an auto size. We're also going to hide the country column for now, which is easy enough to do. Click on the whole column by clicking on the label, right click, and go down to hide, and it's hidden. You can tell it's there because there's a little space between F and G, or F and H, but right now it's hidden, so we don't actually see it. Now we're going to rename the sheet. To rename a sheet, we double click on the name, and then we can rename it, in this case, personal contacts. And then when we're done, just hit enter and it'll save the name. And if you can hide a column, we need to be able to unhide it. You'll notice that if I put my cursor between F and H, I see there's a little 2 lines with arrows. That tells me there's a column there. I'm going to right click and unhide, and I unhid the country column, so I now can see it again. So we'll go ahead and save this and move on to the next exercise. So this next exercise, we're going to play around with worksheets. So I'm going to open up a workbook called Monthly Invoice from the Microsite Student Files, and of course save it as my current student file. And then I'm going to rename this sheet. Remember, double click on the name and then type in the new name and hit enter. And in this case, I'm going to create a copy of this sheet. So I'm going to right click the name, go up to move or copy, select move to end, and then check the create a copy box so that it'll create a new copy for me. So when I click OK, it has created a copy with a name based on the original name, and then it selects that new sheet for me. I'm going to go ahead and rename this one March, and then we can start entering data. The invoice number M015-001, and then in the bill to we're going to type this address, ABC Company. Now you notice we're going to have to go to the next line, and if we want to keep that in a cell, in order to do that, I press and hold Alt and then hit Enter, and that'll go down to the next line in the cell. It's number 300, 6723 McKay Street. Again, Alt Enter, Seattle, Washington, 98006. One more Alt Enter for the phone number, 661 7890. Now that I'm fully done, I'm just going to hit Enter to move out of that, and we'll go ahead and start entering data in here. So the date, March 2nd, the description of services, meeting with project managers at ABC to outline specifics required for new website. Okay. Hours of work was 4 hours at $75 per hour. And we just have to put in those. We'll figure out the cost later. Now, making sure I'm hitting tab on each of these, because now when I hit enter, I go all the way back to the beginning. And now we're on March 9th. And here we go, prototype. Demonstration to project managers with feedback for required versus design needs. That is 2 hours, also at $75 an hour. March 16th, beta test opened to ABC's customer database, specialized group to evaluate, and then we have another Alt Enter coming here. Alt Enter. Feedback sent to both companies for review during next week. Okay, and that one doesn't look like it was billed at any time, so gonna hit enter and move on. We got March 30th, rollout of new website with agreed implemented changes. That was 15 hours at $75 an hour. Now that we've got all that data entered, we can go ahead and click save, and we're ready to move on to the creative application. So in this first creative application, we're going to use the microsite student file. That's the sign-in, membership sign-in form, sign-up form. So I got it. I'm going to go ahead and save it in my Excel files as microsite, as a student file, I should say. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and make some changes. First thing, we're going to move all this contact information here into column B. An easy way to do that, select all of it. I could do cut and paste. I could also, if you notice, you get right on the edge and you see 4 arrows, click, drag it over one, and then you just moved it from column A to column B. Okay. For the description column, which is this one, we're going to set the width to specifically 21 points. This was the value I was talking about earlier. So if I right click and then column width, and I just type in 21 and hit enter, it sets it to 21 points is what they call it. Row 2, we're going to reduce this height to row 2 and row 9. So I'm going to go ahead. I can do that quickly by clicking row 2 first and then clicking row 9 while I hold control. And now I have both of them set. If I right click and do row height and change the row height to 9, it'll change both of them. And that way I don't have to do that twice. I can just do it once. It makes it go quicker. So for the width of columns C through G, we're going to adjust these. I'm going to do all of these by auto sizing. However, I'm going to select all of them first and then auto size. And you'll notice that each one auto sizes according to its data. So that way I can do it again them all at once rather than doing them one at a time. Makes it easier. And then we're going to hide columns K and L, so I hide the tax rate. So I'm going to select both of them, right click and click hide. So that's pretty much it. No more to do with this one. I'm going to go ahead and click save, and we can move on to the next creative application. So in this last creative application, we're going to open up a file of baseball scores from the microsite student files. That's up here. And then what we're going to do is we're going to add a new sheet. So let's right click, move or copy, move to end, create a copy, click OK. And then I'm going to go ahead and double click on this. We're going to change this to the 2015 season. Okay. And then I'm going to go ahead and delete all of this data because we don't need that anymore. We need it for the next season. We're also going to add the coach's name and telephone number. We should probably add that near the team name though, rather than adding it on the end over here. So I'm going to click on the column B, right click and click insert, and that'll add a column there. We'll add coach name there, and then we'll do that again to add another column for coach phone. Okay, and then we can just save this now as baseball scores student, and we're done.